Violet. Municipalities and formidable tracking devices and harmful practices against women in both the public and private sector, local policies and urban planning, particularly the creation and the mainstreaming of public spaces, are essential tools in tracking violence against women. Local government has an important role to play in identifying women and girls affected by violence and providing them with appropriate support and services to escape that it is rebuild their lives. Sustainable Goals 5 of 200 of the Agenda of 2030 is about ending violence and discriminating against women and girls and making sure that they are equal, competitive, and in all areas of life. Significantly, SDG 5 both calls for policies for women and particularly by women in political, economical, and public life. In other words, the goal understands that gender equality and empowerment of women and total goals and labor will come to put together Sustainable Development Goals 5, and it relates to direct responsibility of the local government. It is an important opportunity for local government to administrate, to build an existing international commitments and demonstrate our vital role in the achievement of global gender equality. CGE collaborates with SALGA, entered into a partnership with the intention of implementing gender mainstreaming in local government. The objectives for this exercise is to maintain municipality officials on gender mainstreaming and also incorporating international and regional instruments in the gender mainstreaming within the local government spheres. This is important because municipalities need to embark on gender responsive planning and ensure that the role is not left behind. The planning cycle of municipalities and also ensuring that we have gender responsive services delivery. The gender mainstreaming project is long-term and it is implemented in phases as coming below. The gender mainstreaming capacity builds sessions. Gender analysis and transformation and development documents in the IDP and internal policy environments. Implementations of the findings and recommendations from the gender analysis, monitoring and evaluation. Gauteng has embarked in a process of conducting gender assessment in order to assist municipalities to mainstream gender and ensure transformation. This has provided us with adequate information regarding the status quo in municipalities, identified and informed CGE for further engagement required. The report will reflect work done in three municipalities, which we are sampling this afternoon, challenges and recommendations on how to move forward. I must say that it was very difficult to work through Tshwane and Ekurhuleni, and you'll see in my presentation that the city of Johannesburg has worked with us very closely, and it has given us their statistics. Gender mainstreaming investments conquers the financial year 2019 and 2020. The project combines with a planning engagement with SALGA, COCTA, and directly with individual municipalities. This was discussed in a plan to lobby support towards gender mainstreaming in local government. In this financial year, the encouragement offered CGE an opportunity to share approach with the year. SALGA indicated that they have a challenge of staff shortages, but are willing to work with CGE at any stage. And this has made us to come overall, and they themselves as possible. 3 municipalities were also identified during the engagement: City of Tshwane, Ekurhuleni, and City of Joburg. CGE has engaged with all 3 municipalities to introduce the gender mainstreaming program with local government. That was followed in by the analysis, IGP, and administration of local assessing and evaluating policies of gender mainstreaming. The City of Joburg municipality profile, who is primarily responsible government of the municipality, the city manager, and the accounting officer in the city. When the municipality established in South Africa, it was established in 1897. Does the gender mainstreaming form part of the key performance of top and senior management in your municipality? The answer was the employment equity KPI has been approved and included the performance contacts to all senior managers in the city. This has shown us that 17,384 employees as July 2019. Are they affiliated to any trade union or council provided? Yes, there's SAMU and there's IMN2 and all recognized unions. Gender representativity. The Convention on the Elimination of Forms of Discrimination Against Women, which is CEDAW, states that parties should take appropriate measures to eliminate discriminating against women in the field of employment in order to ensure, based on equality on men and women, to have the same rights. South Africa has promulgated legislation framework that makes provision to gender equality and equity, representation between men and women. The country's Employment Equity Act of number 55 of 1998 is a legislation which prohibit discrimination against the designated groups. Although employers are required to set employment equity targets, the table shows significant numbers in the municipalities that the table represent the numbers of employees. And it is disaggregated by gender, race, and disability status for the current financial year. The municipality does not have not made female employers living with disabilities in top management. African males in all levels are more, African females are less, and then the females races is skilled, and the technical level foreign shows that the nationality in the profession is unequal position. This data will show us that level 1, disability, it will be disability, race, female and males, and foreigners. Then in this level 1, there were no female with disabilities, and there were more males and there were no foreigners. Top management, there were 10 African men, no people with disabilities, 3 females, 6 African females, and no foreigners. Senior management, men were 521, no people with disabilities, 157 females, and 13 whites, 13 Indians, and no foreigners. Professionalism qualified, 111 men, no people with disabilities, 376 females, 24 whites, 200 blacks, 75 Indians, and 6 foreigners. Ladies and gentlemen, this shows that in this city, these are the recommendations that are done, that we have come up with. The municipality should consider what barriers they have constructed that prevents people with disabilities and women of all races from filling top management positions. The municipality should consider the different types of disabilities and work experiences that would even broaden the possibility of people with disabilities to apply. Then create vacancies in top management. It is a pity that a person with disability who is a woman has to present this situation that we find in the 3 municipalities. Nevertheless, the measure to be created by enabling environmental for mainstreaming gender in the city of Johannesburg entails the creation of internal policies and legislative. And we have found that even if women are taken to refresher courses, they are given the soft skills that will not even empower them to go to be in the higher level of employment. What we have seen, that is the group that has looked into that, the EE policies of gender diversity management and approved in 2014 is currently underway. All senior managers to ensure that this policy is implemented accordingly. So COJ is trying very hard, but let me say that the recommendations by CGE is to say, we will be working very closely with the departments, with the municipalities, especially that, Madam Chair, we find that women and girls, that COVID-19 has found that most of the household, as a stats has recommended, that all the people who have been hard hit were the women. Our recommendations and resolutions is to say, due to broadness of the scope on the tool, we could not discuss everything in one engagement. It is clear that City of Joburg is still struggling with most policies, and the understanding of gender transformation, it is low. Further and continuous engaging, it is encouraged that the next financial year, it must be looked into. And CGE has agreed that we will be working very closely with the executive and management policies and programs that promote gender mainstreaming within the municipality. Progress has been made, let me say, so far, things are coming up, and that we will be looking forward to working very closely. On the 4th of August 2020, the city wrote to us an email informing the commission about the following proposed interventions that were informed by the tool: a relaunch of the city's gender steering committee that comprises of GFPs from different departments, sexual harassment task team to be established. 28th of August, the city has said to CGE that we have been invited to make a presentation on gender mainstreaming in local government, which was conducted by the provincial manager through the virtual platform. The audience in that session included political heads, senior managements within the metro. That came as an opportunity because the provincial manager of CGE seek further to buy from the principle of starting the progress made by the municipality in implementing the gender mainstreaming. On the 23rd of September 2020, the city presented through a craft gender policy for the CGE to review. The CGE will review the policy and set a virtual meeting to communicate inputs with the city. The challenges that we have encountered during the duration of the project, we have struggled to get cooperation with the municipalities, getting appointments with the municipalities as senior challenges. This has been taking every time we have postponement. Rather, we will blame it on COVID, Madam Chair. This has delayed the project implementation. The response rate was unsatisfactory and has caused us to take a hostile approach and threaten municipalities to get their cooperation. The quality information on this gender audit was vague and not in depth as envisaged. It has this empowerment and the quality of our assessment, and to say to this indication of lack of commitment from the municipalities and the lack of respect for the mandate of powers. I think, Madam Chair, through our reviewing the charter, it will take every other woman, not only in Gauteng, not only in other provinces, but as South Africans, to come through to say, what is the way forward? In conclusion, the Commission for Gender Equality will continue with such engagements because gender mainstreaming is everyone's responsibility and is the tool that can be used for transformation to a just society. It does not only provide just equal opportunities for all, but it also provides possibilities for all, men and women. Because if women are taken seriously, then the nation will not starve. To take advantage of the opportunities, all role players in local spheres are obligated to promote equality between women and men through ensuring women's equal access and equal opportunities, especially in political and public life, as well as educating reproductive health, employment, family law, child care, and social security. The engagement conducted by CGE serves as a basic and all of these responsive. However, there is a need to understand that taking account of gender equality in all policies, program administration and final activities and organizational procedures contribute to a profound organizational transformation. Addressing gender inequalities in local government involves internal transformation as well integrated gender consideration into key tools of government. Madam Chair, I would even earnestly to say, let's look at on the issue as the Women's Charter is being reviewed to look and empower the girl child with a disability and respect and stop discriminating against women with disabilities. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Mazibuko, Mayor Nomasonto. I just want to make one observation. The issue of cooperation has been something we're coming along with in all the areas, but I should say that particularly Free State and other provinces where we were before, after the engagement, through the engagement, we could see that there was definitely an improvement in the relationship and the cooperation between the local authorities as well as the Commission, particularly in the Free State. We have observed that, and we hope through this engagement that we will begin to respect the mandate of one another and to work together to make a difference for the people that we are supposed to be serving. Thank you very much, Commissioner Mazibuko. We are continuing with our program, and we will now request Nomonde Madubula of the Finance and Fiscal Commission, and once again, from our side, express our deepest condolences with the passing of your chairperson, someone that actually was part of the conceptualization of this program in his agreement, that the issue of the role of the Finance and Fiscal Commission and the issue of gender budgeting is a very important one. So over to you, Nomonde, to do the presentation on behalf of Finance and Fiscal Commission in the perspective to enhance gender responsive planning and budgeting in the Tshwane and Ekurhuleni metros.
Thank you, Chair. I will also pass the message to the Commission. Thank you so much. We are really indeed saddened by the news. Thank you. Kevin, do you have the presentation on your slide, on your side?
It's visible now. You can continue.
Okay. Yes, pass this one. Thank you. This is the presentation outline. I will just touch on what is the role of the FFC, the research that FFC has done on gender budgeting, the recommendations that FFC has done, as well as the concluding remarks. Next slide, please. The FFC, just to highlight, the FFC is an independent institution established in terms of the Constitution. Its mandate really is to make recommendation and give advice to Parliament, provincial legislatures, organized local government and other organs of state on the equitable division of revenue among the 3 spheres of government and any other financial and fiscal matters thereof. Next slide. I will pass this one. Thank you. As we have heard from the previous speakers that despite government commitment to gender equality through various policies and legislative instruments that, among other things, include anti-discrimination legislation and employment equity policies, unacceptable gender inequalities exist in the country. Just to quote from the Stats SA that indeed Black female-headed households are the poorest of the poor in South Africa. If we compare them to males, you find that 41.3% of South African households are headed by females. Of those female-headed households, 56% fall into the poorest quintile compared to 44% of the male-headed households. And only 31% of the female-headed households fall into the upper quintile, which is 5, compared to 69% of the male-headed households. Next slide. This slide I will pass because Neil has also touched on in terms of the current states of the issues. Then I'll go on to this one. In light of the background, one avenue that should receive greater emphasis in addressing these issues is through the intergovernmental fiscal relations system. The FFC is of the view that a successful IGFR system should be sensitive to the needs of women and contribute to moving them out of poverty. In order to be able to do that, innovations in policy design and implementation are required so as to ensure gender-sensitive resource allocation. What FFC did in that context was to do a research where it assessed gender responsiveness of municipal budgeting process, whereby the study followed 2 approaches, mainly using random sampling of municipalities that were chosen, where their IDPs, which is the integrated development plans, were reviewed, and also some of the case studies that were done in Gauteng, Western Cape, Eastern Cape, and the Free State. Of particular interest to these was to look at 4 sectors, which were the local economic development, the water and sanitation, early childhood development, and housing infrastructure. As FFC is of the view that these 4 sectors, they really play a huge role in making sure that the plight for women is really alleviated. The next slide. In terms of the findings from the IDP scans that were done randomly on the 30 municipalities, it was found that there is lack of gender mainstreaming and women empowerment as an approach in these municipalities. There is lack of gender disaggregated data between the female and male. What was found was also, it's more about the equity issues versus equality, where you'll find that if you ask how many women have you employed, you will get those numbers. But in terms of equal opportunities, those were lacking. Also, what FFC found out in terms of the IDPs was that there was weak translation of gender equality commitments into fiscal commitments. What do we mean by that is that IDPs show little evidence of the manner in which the IDP planning processes and budget offices have budgeted for gender mainstreaming. Next slide. The results from the case studies indicated that the research was of two approach for the IDPs as well as case study from the provinces. What we found out at provincial level was that there is poor translation of the national agenda on women empowerment and gender equality into local government programs. There's limited data that is disaggregated. You'll find that even in instances where the data is available, it's just used for population purpose. It's not used to target what are the programs that should be targeting between male versus female and what is the outcome of those programs. Also, what we found out was that most of the gender events that take place are gender discourse is events driven. You find out if there's Women's Day, there'll be something done, but after that, nothing else is continuing. There is also lack of gender budgeting, training, and capacity building of decision makers. You find that people that are supposed to be decision makers involved in the gender budgeting programs, they lack training as well as capacity building. Also, what FFC found out was that there is poor institutionalization of gender responsive budgeting process. You'll find out from the beginning when the budget process is that it's not included in the APP of the departments. Then once it's not done like that, then it's impossible that it's going to be in the implementation phase. So we find that those institutional mechanisms are poor currently. Also, what FFC was found was that there's absence of analysis of the gender impact of the existing revenues and expenditures. Next slide. Also, some of the reasons for this limited gender mainstreaming and gender budgeting in local government was the absence of an approved gender policies across municipalities, as well as absence of municipal gender mainstreaming strategy. Find out from the strategies of the municipalities and their IDPs, we don't found that there are these programs on gender sensitivity in place. Also, personnel in management, those who make decisions, and budget officers, those who are supposed to track expenditure and tell us what are the outcomes, whether the outcomes have any impact. You find that they have limited knowledge when it comes to the subject of gender mainstreaming. Also, gender equality indicators and the collection of gender disaggregated information is limited, where I've indicated earlier that if there is some disaggregation of the data, is just used for population purpose instead of also being converted in making sure that it targets those programs so that there is gender equality and the impact can be felt between both genders. Next slide. In that instance, the FFC made recommendations on gender budgeting. At the national and provincial level, the FFC recommended that the national and provincial governments should run gender budgeting pilots in a few municipalities first and evaluate the results before wider application. These pilots could be linked to gender disaggregated data for key conditional grants in the system. As we know that we have conditional grants on infrastructure, we have conditional grants on early childhood development grant. We are of the view that if this can be done, it will indeed have a positive impact. Also, the FFC recommended that the national and provincial governments should ensure municipal integrated development plans are institutionalized into gender planning by sector, where we are of the view that water and sanitation, local economic development programs should play a role, should be a priority, and that they should include gender disaggregated performance indicators and targets and provide gender budgeting good practice guides and toolkits. Also, the FFC recommended that the national and provincial government should provide guidelines for the collection of sex disaggregated data for budgeting processes and ensure that municipalities have the capacity to analyze budget from gender lens. Government response when this recommendation was tabled was that government supports the proposal which will ensure that the collection and allocation of public resource is effectively carried out and will indeed contribute to advancing gender equality and women's empowerment. Government also indicated that it will provide tools to assess the different needs and contribution of men, women, boys and girls within the existing revenues, expenditures and allocation, and it will call for adjusted budget policies to benefit all groups. The status of the recommendation at the time it was tabled was that the Department of Women, Youth and Disabilities is engaging National Treasury on budgets and has indicators on gender responsive budget in its strategic plan. The next slide. At the local government level, the FFC recommended that the local government should institutionalize gender responsive processes linked to the IDPs, and also the local government should build capacity for gender mainstreaming and gender responsive budgeting at local level, ensure that gender responsive appropriation and budget allocations, as well as ensure that there is public participation and consultation at the local level. Government response to the recommendation was that, gender responsive budget analysis, along with legislation and other practical policy measures, can indeed address gender bias and discrimination. Government was of the view that it is a step towards increased accountability and public transparency, and it can shift economic policies leading to gains across society. However, the proposal implementation may be hindered by capacity constraints at the municipal level. At the time when this recommendation was tabled and there was government response, there was no status of what took place after. Next slide. Here, in terms of the conclusion, the FFC is of the view that the Municipal Fiscal Powers and Functions Act of 2007, next slide, Kevin, I will summarize both, as well as the Municipal Finance Management Act of 2003. The FFC is of the view that these acts can indeed play a role in terms of gender mainstreaming and gender sensitive if those issues are included in those acts. Currently, these acts don't talk anything about gender mainstreaming or gender budgeting or gender sensitive budget. So the FFC is of the view that perhaps these two acts can be reviewed so that after their review, implementation can also be at a faster level than it is currently being conducted. The FFC is of the view that if all these mechanisms can be taken into place, there is no doubt that the fire that was lit in the adoption of the first Women's Charter in April 1994 will continue burning. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Nomonde. Thank you for the insightful presentation. It is indeed giving direction as to how, particularly at the local level and generally in government, we can respond to the issue of gender planning and gender budgeting. I will now give over to Honorable Tebogo Modise to preside over the last part of the program. Over to you, Tebogo Modise.
Good afternoon, Honorable Deputy Chairperson, Mama Sylvia Lucas. Good afternoon. I'm happy to see you. That's why I'm calling you Mama. Good afternoon, all the people.
They say those of us that survived COVID-19 is moving.
Yeah. That's why I'm calling you Mama. But I didn't want to go in details. And good afternoon, all the presenters. Ntatelichi Satenwell in his absence here, and all members. Now, honorable member, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to call upon the MMC from Ikuruleni. Let me check. Councillor N. Nkosi. Deputy Chairperson,
Yes.
the question is not who's going to lead me. The question is who's going to stop me. Councillor, the platform is yours.
Thank you, Honorable Chair Tebogo, and thank you, Chair Mama Sylvia Lucas, honorable members of Parliament, members of NCOP present, Honorable Premier in absentia, Honorable Speaker of Gauteng, distinguished guests, all protocol observed. It is an honor for me to rise and represent the woman paving the way towards gender equality by 2030. The National Development Plan 2030 identifies the financial inclusion of women as a critical tool that will result in quicker poverty elimination and reduction of inequality and contribute towards the achievement of gender equality. As we converge today to review the Women's Charter, which was adopted at the founding conference at the Federation of South African Women in 1954. The Charter was adopted, advocated, and I quote, open quote, "We women do not form a society separate from men. There is only one society, and it is made up of both women and men. As women, we share the problems and anxieties of our men and join hands with them to remove social evils and obstacles to progress," close quotes. The Charter articulated a vision for a democratic society and give content to the idea of gender equality. Hence, we should at all times strive for a society that realizes that socio-economic empowerment of women is a tool to achieve gender equality, which will in turn accelerate socio-economic transformation for women empowerment and the advancement of gender equality. Nelson Mandela once said, open quote, "Everyone is equal before the law and has the right to equal protection and benefit of the law. Equality includes the full and equal enjoyment of all rights and freedoms. To promote the achievement of equality, legislative and other measures designed to protect and advance persons or categories of persons disadvantaged by unfair discrimination may be taken." Esteemed guests, the platform that is provided to us today seeks to ensure that we review on what we have achieved with the aim of identifying policy gaps and gaps in legislation, so that as we pave our way towards gender equality by 2030, we gear in redressing the gaps emanating from the review of the Women's Charter in 1994. While the world has achieved progress towards gender equality and women's empowerment under the Millennium Development Goals, women and girls continue to suffer discrimination and violence in every part of the world. Gender equality is not only a fundamental human right, but also a necessary foundation for a peaceful, prosperous, and sustainable world. Providing women and girls with equal access to education, healthcare, decent work, and representation in political and economic decision-making process will fuel sustainable economies and benefit society and humanity at large. I think it is important that we note that discrimination against women continues to manifest itself across various institutions in society, such as homes, churches, workplace, and institutions of learning. This escalates into the scourge of gender-based violence, brutality, and murder. This scourge is a manifestation of structural and systematic domination by men over women. This has resulted in the Gauteng response plan to give effect to the President's IREP with the following as key pillars: prevention of gender-based violence. With this pillar, we must reflect on how best we can change norms and behavior through high-level prevention efforts, which seeks to end the narrative in gender-based violence. Pillar 2, mobilize sustainable social actions whose main objective is to create awareness and dialogue with community members through civil society organizations on issues affecting women, children, and people with disability. Socio-economic transformation and empowerment. Provide care, healing, and support for victims of violence by agently responding to victims and survivors of GBV. Enhance the legal and policy framework by strengthening accountability and architecture to respond to scourge of GBV adequately. Strengthen the criminal justice system. Economic empowerment for women in South Africa. Prioritizing interventions that facilitate economic opportunities, addressing women's economic vulnerability. It is also very important that we note the legislative framework that needs to be considered on the plans to improve the socio-economic status of women and do a reflection on whether we have done justice to the Beijing Platform for Action, as well as the United Nations Convention on the elimination of all forms of discrimination against women. Before I close, I want to hand over to my divisional head, Sislindiwe Konjigwayo, to talk to the issue and add on the overview of the Metro response to plan to improve on socio-economic status of women. Thank you. Chair, can I hand over to my divisional head of women, Sislindiwe Konjelwayo, to continue with an
You're
overview.
welcome, ma'am. You are welcome to do that.
Okay, thank you, Sislindiwe.
Thank you very much, MMC. All of you who are present here.
Sorry, ma'am, we can't hear you. Can you raise your voice, ma'am? And pick up your radio, please. Ma'am?
Yes, it's someone else.
Oh, it's someone else. Oh, please. Can you mute your mic, ladies and gentlemen? Please. Now you are disturbing the presenter.
Unmute Memodise. Unmute Memodise. Unmute.
Oh, sorry. Oh. Yes, ma'am, you can continue. Sorry for that, for the inconvenience. Yes, ma'am. Can you continue with your presentation? I did. Ma'am, can you continue with your presentation?
Thank you very much. Am I audible enough?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you very much. Thank you, MMC. I'm going to just amplify on what MMC Nomadlo Zinkosi has just submitted to this session. That firstly, our approach in the improvement of the socio-economy provide the provision of the overview on what we have done as the city of Ekurhuleni on the status of women is that one, we have adopted a concept on ending the narrative on gender-based violence and as our approach emanating from the status of the report on the status of women adopted by the Fifth Parliament in 2015. The important factor to that effect is that our submission is informed by the work that the United Nations, including the country itself, has been doing in ensuring that it provides a path towards women's economic empowerment but also ensuring that there is inclusive, equal access to primary education for women and girls in particular, so that we eliminate all forms of discrimination that might emanate from those levels. I think MMC has alluded enough on what is it that we are doing in ensuring that we do away with the sketch, that our response plan speaks to what the emergency response plan, because the emergency response plan does not only speak about gender-based violence as it relates to domestic violence or sexual assault, but it also seeks to speak to issues of economic empowerment for women, which we regard as economic participation and empowerment, but also what is it that needs, what are the policy strategic interventions that we're putting in place to ensure that we improve on the status. The legislative mandates that has been spoken to by all the speakers in the respective presentation are what gives us the guide, in particular the National Strategic Plan on gender-based violence and femicide, but also the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, the set or a rule, as well as the Pepuda Act, which is saying what is it that we need to do. On what we are doing as the city is that on inception, firstly, we must appreciate that the city of Ekurhuleni in 2015 institutionalized a directorate responsible for women, children, and people with disabilities, whose main focus was ensuring that it champions the interest of women, children, and people within the city as a whole. On that, in championing that, it envisages itself that the gender equality, for us to realize gender equality, we need a society that is very cognizant of inclusion of all the targeted areas in ensuring that we deliver on what is required. So basically in 2016-17, the city, through the city protocols, we conducted a social audit which intended to determine the prevalence of gender-based violence in the city, in particular as it relates to women and children. And in that effect, we had a number of stakeholders, but through that program, we ensured that we had advanced the agenda for socio-economic empowerment and transformation on the rights of women, children, and people with disabilities. Through that, we also ensured that we have proper structures that sought to mobilize sustainable social actions whose main objectives are to create awareness and dialogue with community members through civil society organization, so that when we speak of issues that seeks to take us towards what we refer to as paving the way towards gender equality by 2030, we've got a sustainable structure. The first structure that we started institutionalizing is what we call the Ekurhuleni Women Empowerment Forum, whose mandate is interacting and dialoguing amongst women workers on issues affecting their well-being in the workplace within the necessary legislative mandates. The second one, in line with the National Gender Machinery Strategic Framework, we institutionalize an Ekurhuleni Gender Machinery, which is a community participation platform comprised of stakeholders in the socio-economic transformation agenda for women, children, and people with disability, in line with the South African National Policy Framework for Women Empowerment and Gender Equality. The core function of the gender machinery in Ekurhuleni is to review and reflect on progress towards realizing gender mainstreaming by 2030, which seeks to ensure that all stakeholders are active on socio-economic transformation, and it is also promoted to necessitate mapping the way forward towards ending the narrative on gender-based violence. Due to the fact that we are still lacking on the implementation of the gender focal persons strategic framework, as a city, we institutionalized an interdepartmental technical team, which is comprised of the divisional heads delegated by HODs to assist with issues of mainstreaming and championing the interest of women and other transformational groups towards realizing gender equality by 2030. We also have a quarterly roundtable on ending the narrative on gender-based violence, which is a platform where stakeholders meet to ensure accountability at the highest level and across all levels of society through firm individual and collective leadership. We also have the Ekurhuleni Women Initiative Hub, which is comprised of women in infrastructure development. The mandate there is to mobilize sustainable action coalitions in the construction sector with an objective of narrowing the gap and breaking the barriers on sector bullying and thus enhancing economic empowerment of women in the city. I think State SA has given a proper situational analysis in as far as our poverty index is concerned, but also the limitations on the basis of the impact of poverty, unemployment, and inequality. So it would be wrong for me to go back. But I think in essence, what we wanted to submit is what are the interventions and measures are we putting in place on ensuring that we end the narrative on gender-based violence. The first thing that we did as a city emanating from the emergency response plan was the issue of accountability, coordination, and leadership. Hence, I've indicated earlier on that we already have institutionalized structures that seeks to ensure that there's a clear consultation, there's clear coordination of programs as well as leadership. The first thing is that what we wanted to ensure on the issue of accountability is strengthening leadership accountability across government and society to effectively respond to the unemployment, inequality, as well as poverty. That we have established these structures that have related to, and their terms of reference have been adopted, and there is integrated program of action, and that is what we are doing continuously. This is assisting us to ensure that everybody that is within the city of Ekurhuleni takes a center stage on the development as well as the socio-economic transformation and empowerment of women. The second one was that we needed to ensure that there is effective multi-sectoral coordination by lead agencies and collaboration across different tiers of government and across different sections. I think this one is more informed by what the Khawuleza district model seeks to achieve, that we needed to ensure that there is coordination of prevention of any form of violence that emanates from the sector itself, in ensuring that this that we regard as gender-based discrimination is ended. There are integrated targeted programs that the city continuously runs with its department, but mostly the targeted departments that we anticipate that they respond is your finance department, your EMPD in terms of social crime prevention, as well as social development, in ensuring that they do necessary support programs to lead in that event. The other issue which becomes our key intervention program is the issue of sorry about that, prevention and restoration of social fabric. Here we're saying what is important is that we need to strengthen the service delivery capacity to roll out effective prevention programs. There is a clear development of collected transformative material and approaches that can be adopted to prevent interventions. How do we liaise with other stakeholders in intergovernmental relations at departments to ensure that we sustain campaigns targeted at ensuring that women take a center stage in the development, but also transformational agenda towards 2030. And in this regard, all our civil society organizations are on course, and I think they are all here, they can attest to what we are saying. The other issue that we're putting on table in as far as prevention and restoration of social fiber is concerned is that there's a need for us to strengthen service delivery capacity to roll out effective prevention programs. Our service delivery model does not only speak to infrastructure development, but it responds to human capital itself to say, how does it support community capacity to deliver enough preventative interventions? We've got in place the grant and aids which are supporting our NPO in the communities. We are awarding NPOs who are dealing with issues of GBV management. We have funding that is in place that ensures that those small developing entrepreneurs, they are developed through your Shimilani, your Panda, which has just been granted in the financial year 2019. We're also very proud as the city that we are doing very well in terms of ensuring that which was advocated by the Freedom Charter, all doors of learning shall be open, that the city prides itself on the bursary that it awards to all matriculants, that they access education at university level, those that are qualifying and where affordability dictates were able. I think currently we're standing at 10 million in the current financial year where we've given, and our bursary is targeting inclusively people with disability as well. We also train and support community capacity programs to deliver on prevention interventions that no form of discrimination. Our liaison with the integrated stakeholders like your FET colleges in ensuring that we improve and enhance on business management programs is what is ongoing. And again, we pride ourselves on the number of memorandum of understanding the city has. I think the latest one that we did was the CETA, where CETA had afforded the city of Equitable sustenance 10 million to ensure that the women at CETA had construction. We also have we undertook training with the NHBRC, where 150 graduates came from the city of Eguruleni on construction models. And then the other issue that we spoke to is the issue of protection, the issue of protection, safety, and justice. I think MMC alluded to this issue to say, how do we improve access and support services for women and children in particular? We have noted immensely that our townships in particular are currently challenged. So we're currently in engagement with our city planning department in ensuring that the spatial planning of our city, which now seems to be a threat around issues of perpetual gender-based violence, is addressed. Because you find, for example, that in one household, there are about 6 or 7 tenants at the back. When the child is reported missing, most of the time the child is found. So we're putting interventions in place to respond to specific barriers that seeks to deny our access to services, specifically for people with disabilities, LGBTQ communities, and women in particular. The other critical example that we want to bring on board is that our health clinics, we have mandated through MMC Nomadlozinkosi that people with albinism condition need to access the sunscreen, including the camphor cream, like they do when you have period pains, to access the Panado. So that medical condition. So we're doing well in ensuring that we put interventions in place to respond to those respective barriers. Then on response care and support and healing, we then also said there is a need for us to strengthen existing response care and support services to facilitate recovery and healing. Our critical challenge here is that we do have CPOs, FBOs, activists that are engaged in shaping local responses. However, the limitation becomes inadequacy or insufficient number of support centers, particularly for your victim empowerment programs. And we then are saying as a city, soon we'll be getting into memorandum of understanding with respective service providers that are in place in ensuring that we strengthen the existing response care support services to facilitate recovery and planning. And we pride ourselves as the city that we are a city of Mama Betakowa, and we do have a Betakowa hospital that we seek to ensure that it becomes a women information center. And also, other than it becoming a women information center, we're also in the process of developing a women economic development hub, where women are going to ensure that they accelerate initiatives to address women's unequal economic and social position. I think, Chairperson, most of the things that I'm speaking to, MMC has spoken to say we already have a number of programs implemented for equitable job creation. Your Vugupile program seeks to have targets that we're reporting on quarterly basis and ensure that the reporting that we do is also monitored. We do have challenges. Commissioner Mazibuko was saying earlier on to say the city of Eguruleni does not come on board properly with CGE. Yes, but we are on course, and we can assure you that our presentation is already on the table of the Chairperson in relation to that. Some of the implementation of policy interventions that we put in place to address barriers women face to participate in strategic section of the economy. We have ensured that we register an NPO, a non-profit making organization called Eguruleni Women Initiative Hub. Their members are also in attendance today, where they dialogue amongst themselves in saying, how do we break the barriers of bullies in the infrastructure value chain? And we've ensured that we make workplaces safe and violence-free for all women and other gender non-conforming groups. The issue of workplace intervention for GBV support is being rolled out per department through the structure that I related to earlier on, called the Eguruleni Women Empowerment Forum. it does a number of programs on wellness, and it ensures that it does have feedback session on quarterly basis. Currently, the sexual harassment policy is in place and is being implemented with review taking place. On the issue of monitoring the gender responsive planning, budgeting, monitoring and evaluation, there is a rollout already. Our senior management has been taken through that rollout with the limitation that there is slight improvement in terms of its implementation. Like earlier on, it was indicated that some municipalities are implementing GRPBMENA, however, they are not aware. So there is a need of integration of GPV targets on the SDPIP planning. That is what the Office of the City Manager is currently implementing and monitoring. I want to thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, ma'am, for your presentation. Indeed, it's well. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to take the input. Let me make it clear, ladies and gentlemen, it is not an imbizo. We are here to review our women's charter. So we need your input to make sure that we review that women's charter. Now I'm going to allow question or input from the participants. You can use raise your hand, or you can tell me that you want to speak. I will allow you to speak. It's a time for the input questions. Ladies and gentlemen. You don't want to input?
I would like to come in, please, Chair.
Ma'am, yeah, you are welcome. You can come in, ma'am.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Just before Francisca, let me just mention that because of the administration, it seemed that we won't have an input from the city of Tshwane. So,
oh, yeah.
but we can continue. We can allow Francisca Fons.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
I would like to suggest, and maybe somebody can answer me, that our municipal bodies that deal with gender-based violence and gender mainstreaming be more on the forefront and is more accessible. Because I've been reading in the comments, and some of the women in this group are very active, and many of them say they weren't aware of the programs run in our municipalities. And obviously not all municipalities have committed to the same programs. But even for myself, who is active daily, to know who to go to at a municipality and to address a certain manner and a certain matter and something that has occurred within the boundaries of the municipality, that always seems to be a gray area. And very often, and this, you know, if we see in terms of COVID-19, we all had the emergency numbers and they were well manned. It's essential that these desks at municipalities are well manned, that you don't call a number that goes into a voice and then after a while say nobody's answering, try again later, which is what happens. So please, can somebody please indicate what municipalities will be compelled to do to make it accessible for women, first of all in need, but also for those of us who do work with these matters, to actually get a result and to change the narrative that is playing out in our society today. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Let me check. Fisher, and please, Galax 10, can you rename your gadget? And then you'll follow by and that Vodacom Power. Can you rename your budget, your gadget? Nomfuso, let's hear from the input from Fisher. Before that, I can say the faster way to change. The faster way to change the society is to mobilize the women all over the country. Now, women, the floor is yours. Mama Fisher.
Hi, good afternoon. Thank you, Chair, so much. So my name is Jaja Fisher. I'm an Executive Director for Trans Power Care Center, and I'm a transgender woman. And I just want to raise an awareness in this forum on the fact that a lot of the discussions that were happening today is very binary in terms of when we speak about women, we're speaking about women who are assigned female at birth, and we're talking about girls and the gender-based violence amongst assigned female at birth women. And so as a transgender woman myself, my concern is how will this woman's charter assist transgender women in terms of the issues and the challenges that we face, and also gender diverse persons, because I think when we're looking at the gender policy, we need to see how inclusive will this policy be for transgender women. And so it also brings me again to what Stats SA's information that was being discussed initially is how does that affect transgender women? Because again, in terms of Stats SA's information that was given, is very masculine and feminine, but where do we as transgender women basically fit in? Because even in terms of our Home Affairs IDs, we are still categorized as males according to these IDs, yet we identify as women. So that raises a big concern for us as transgender women. And so for me personally, I would also like to know how inclusive are organizations to trans and gender diverse persons in terms of assistance, in terms of gender-based violence, in terms of employment, socioeconomic status, because I was involved in research with the Human Sciences Research Council as well. And I know for a fact that there's a lot of unemployment amongst the LGBTQI community, but more specifically in the transgender community because of the stigma and discrimination that comes with being a transgender person. So I would like those kinds of things just need to be that I would like to raise in terms of how would that basically assist our community as a transgender woman. Thank you.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Nomfuso Mwawe. Yeah.
Good afternoon, honorable members. Chairperson, thank you very much for the opportunity. My name is Nomfundo Nwabe, and I am from Ekurhuleni. Honorable Member Mazibuko earlier on gave us statistics with regards to the equality from the different cities that she was dealing with. Now, from a woman that comes from Ekurhuleni, and what is also raised by Honorable Member Nkosi, and the different structures that apply in Ekurhuleni city, one would like to find out how does one actually access those structures, because it's the first time that I actually hear of them. And with the statistics that were raised by Honorable Mazibuko, what are the changes or the plans that one can help the community of Ekurhuleni to put in place to actually try and level out the inequality within the women fraternity? Because listening to those stats being read was quite a damning factor to say that after all these years that the commission and the bill has been raised, nothing has actually been done about it. Thank you very much.
What is your input in the reviewing the Women Charter, ma'am? Okay, PM Galax A10. Galax A10.
Is that me?
Oh, I don't know because your gadget says Galax 10, ma'am. Yes, you are welcome.
Okay. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Yes, my name is Susan Maluka, and I am director of gender, children, elderly, and faith-based in the city of Tshwane.
Can you please open?
And I'm aware that in the city of Tshwane, from the city of Tshwane.
Sorry, so, is it possible to open your video if you have a video? Because
yes,
we are.
Yes, this is me.
Thank you.
I really appreciate the invite, and I also appreciated the presentation, especially the statistics, and touching on what the CGE presented. Yes, through the coalition state, the city, especially issues of women, went through very challenging phases. But I want to appreciate the presentations of FF Commission, because it really touched very much in depth on the challenges and the suggestions as presented. For me, I would say there is nothing that the presenter left out. And I would like to use the recommendation and look deeper on the recommendation that she put forward, because basically all the challenges that she put are as they are in the city. Moving away from the presenters and why the city is not presenting today, I'm not going to give an excuse, or I'm not going to give a presentation why, but I would also want to share the experiences of evolution. The South African democracy is growing, is evolving, and the municipalities are also going through that. I want to discuss the Women's Charter and the struggle of the women and the narrative of the women, and where we come from and where we are going, and what we think we have put in place, what has been put in place as per legislation, as per regulations, as per policies, to zoom into the city of Tshwane and say, what lessons have we learned when a local government, maybe in future provincial governments, go through a coalition? What happens to issues of the vulnerable groups, of the special groups? Who takes care of them when there is that kind of change that is abrupt, and at the same time might not even be pushing for the issues that the former administration was pushing, or what we as South African women are pushing in terms of promoting and protecting the rights of those of the vulnerable? Talking from a point of experience is that as the city was going through the coalition phase, political coalition, the issue of women particularly were put at the back. The discussions, the forums, the gender machinery, the programs, the mainstreaming, the reporting, and the evaluation were not getting the focus that it used to get. So my small input on these matters is that the FF Commission has indicated that we have legislations in place, and these legislations don't speak to gender responsive budgeting, don't speak to gender mainstreaming, don't particularly bind and require formal accountability from our principals, especially in spaces where political administration can just change, and you find that there are multiple political parties coming together and leading the institution. So my question here is, of which I have experienced it, and I need it to be well addressed, not only for the city of Tshwane, but I think for all municipalities in South Africa, as the responsibility seems to be lying much on us in terms of championing the issues of women, especially GBV. Where do we get the mandate to set up and establish the GOD units? That is one of the main questions that we got. What legislation puts or gives birth to units that are gender focused, youth focused, disabled focused, and so on and so forth? One would argue from the Constitution, Section 9, and then Chapter 2, Section 9, equality, and so on and so forth. But what is it that is formal to say a local government must have a GOD, a unit that is championing and mainstreaming and advocating the issues and the rights of, and promoting the rights of the vulnerable groups? Because our experience in the city of Sun, I think, opened our eyes that there is a gap. There is something missing that really must hold people accountable, whether leadership changes or it doesn't change. Our standing and our mandate continues, because the GBV, gender-based violence, did not decrease in the city of Tshwane. Gender-based violence in Tshwane never really had one head accounting for it. Gender-based violence did not become anyone's issue. So what am I saying here? I am saying, what authority or legal authority gives us a leg as GOD unit through all the municipalities to exist? And if it doesn't exist, isn't it about time that we review maybe the Municipal System Act or the Structural Act, or so that it is clear that it cannot be a choice of a political leadership whether I have or I don't have a GOD unit within the municipality, and what are its core functions? So much on what Lindiwe presented, those are the issues that we have been running with as the city before the coalition. So I'm saying, as things change and as we grow, we also need to be careful and to be vigilant on how these changes impact on the struggle and the appreciation and the narrative of women. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Now I'm going to call Vodacom Power 10, because she didn't name the gadget. Vodacom 10. Vodacom 10? None. Okay. Menkosi? Menkosi?
Aye.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, and all the speakers for the great presentations. I just want to give a few, I'm also from Ekurhuleni, and it's quite sad to say that most of the beautiful stories told of Ekurhuleni I'm not aware of. And I am participating in one forum of women. So maybe, I don't know. I really have to check also if I've missed something, but I don't know most of those things. And a lot of them were also part of the recommendations I was going to make. So I will make them anyway, because I guess we are all learning also from this forum. One, in terms of inclusion of young girls in higher position, it's a process that starts from birth to death. So as the government is at the locality or in the community through local government and through the ward committee structures, I recommend that the early child development centers and the clinic staff be capacitated of the value of a child with disability. What am I saying? That we all take responsibility to make sure that children that are born with disability are registered. They are not only registered for birth, but they are also progressed through from birth to death. That will help the municipality also to become aware of children with disability that are born within their locality. And the purpose of that is exactly what the Commission for Gender Equity was saying, that the girl child with disability is no way. This will also take care of a problem where the girl child does not make to higher echelons of positions at work. So that when we all know of such a child, in the IDPs, such children must be recognized in terms of what is the municipality's plan for them from the very early age, so that their access to education is taken care of at a very early age. Because if that is missed, that is the child who may not even go to primary school, never mind secondary, never mind university. That's point number one. Number two, the issue of gender equality and gender mainstreaming. I want to align myself with the previous speaker, that the gender mainstreaming, some officials, unfortunately at very high places, seem to think that gender mainstreaming is a choice. Gender mainstreaming is actually the right of every citizen in South Africa, so that their needs, either as employees or as beneficiaries of the service of government, may know that they all have a right to access services equally as gender within their gender perspectives. The third input that I want to make is that perhaps as a recommendation to this problem of people choosing whether to mainstream or not, it could help that we have a national, a very high level framework, which I think the Department of Women, through the support of UN Women, is doing. We have a very high level framework for gender mainstreaming so that the national departments can put flesh in their context on that skeleton or on that framework. Same as the provinces, same as the municipalities up to local government level. And all the chain of officials in that stream be required to, or be expected to have gender mainstreaming as their key performance areas. And also let there be a serious punitive measure that those who don't, they must be taken to task, because the very unheard citizens miss out because of the disregard of the officials who are placed in power and in the care of the citizens. And lastly, if we really want to achieve women economic empowerment, which will help deal with social vulnerabilities that the poor of the poorest, most of which are women who are heading the households, it would help that when government says there's a tender or there's a project or there's a program that should help the country record and be noted for taking care of its women or for taking care of its vulnerable groups, that we have that program or that policy or that budget or that project coming along with a mechanism that will ensure. It must just not be a policy that's passed or a tender that's announced. There must be a mechanism to ensure that women in the particular municipality where that project is taking place are empowered. They are capacitated, so that tender must come with a capacity building budget that will call upon women and say, those women who can participate in this project, here is the skills, here is the knowledge. 1, 2, there must be services of government agents that can incubate such women. So government will know well in time when is what is going to happen. Perhaps this year they will know in their MTFs what is going to happen in 2 years, in 3 years, in 5 years. So they must start preparing for that now and say, women in community X or in municipality X, come, let us see how those women who are unemployed can be assisted and be empowered and be helped to benefit from the government programs for women economic empowerment. Number 3, there must be serious, this one is a serious problem, Bagit. South Africa is noted to have the best policies. What is the problem? The problem is some policies are not funded. Some policies, or most of the policies, will not be supported with programs, If they are supported with programs, there is no monitoring. If there is a monitoring mechanism, nobody monitors the implementation of the monitoring. And that brings a great shame on us as a country. And lastly, the civil society organizations need to be empowered also as to what is their role in following up on what government proposes to do. We have a best country, we have the best democracy, we have good intentions, we have the National Development Plan, which anchors to the Constitution on what we seek to achieve as a country, but we are shamed by some people along the way, unfortunately, who are paid a full big good salary to shame the country and its constituency. Thank you.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Indeed, you educate a woman. I mean, you educate a man, you educate a man.
Definitely.
You educate a woman, we educate generation.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mama. Now I'm going to call upon Councillor Khumalo, Priscilla Khumalo. Councillor Priscilla Khumalo?
Yes, I'm here, Chair. I'm not Priscilla, I am Patricia Khumalo. Thank you very much, and I'm the Speaker of the City of Ekurhuleni Council. Let me take this opportunity, Chair, and thank our GPL Speaker for actually inviting us to be part of this important gathering. And I think that we have learned so much given the opportunity that we have, and also great the leadership from Parliament who are here with us. Let me say that I appreciate and welcome all presentations, Stats SA, in terms of zooming directly to Ekurhuleni about poverty lines and inequality. And I hope that using that report will be able to address some of the issues that had been identified as weaknesses. I also believe that for municipalities to achieve gender equality, I would like to agree with the recommendations that we really need to look at specific pieces of legislation that will enforce that gender mainstreaming, gender responsive budgeting happens. My recommendation here would be, let's focus on the Municipal Structures Act. Let us focus on the Municipal Finance Management Act. That will also assist us in terms of when we do our IDP processes, that it's not like voluntary, but it must be mandatory, that we follow certain processes that will actually deliver gender equality in our cities. And also it will push that we have disaggregated data that will actually assist us to to know exactly about the status of women in our area. Also, in terms of CGE, I am so disheartened, Commissioner, that you found such an attitude from our metro. This is not us. I hope that the executive is here, MMC will take cognizance of the comments made by the Commissioner, so that we do not be labeled, we do not find ourselves being labeled as very non-cooperative municipality. I would also want to endorse all the recommendations by the Finance and Fiscal Commission, because if we can achieve those, definitely they will put us at a certain level as municipalities. And I also agree with this notion that says events do not change systems. Yes, they are there for awareness raising, but we must begin to change the system so that we can be able to achieve what we want. I don't want to be low. Another thing is, I have looked at the document on economic emancipation. I think it's economic. I'm worried because in Ekurhuleni we've got quite a number of what I termed the survivalist sector. Those women who sell sweets, those women who sell magwenya, those women who go to schools and sell bomakota, etc., etc. Where do we put them? Because they are not small, they just there to survive. I propose that as we strengthen the Women's Charter, let us zoom into that and see and say, since the majority of people are now losing their jobs and they go directly to that sector, which is the survivalist sector, what strategies can we ensure, or what pieces of legislation that can be changed to ensure that we actually accommodate them? I'd really like to take this opportunity and thank Parliament for coming to our province so that we can be able to ventilate and also be exposed and make contribution to the draft Women's Charter review on this review process. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Speaker. I'm sorry I didn't pronounce your name correctly. My apology for that. This PM10, Vodacom PM10, he's still there. Still want to speak because I've seen, oh, now it's another hand. Okay, no more in the white. No more in the white.
For this opportunity. My name is Nomonde and I'm part of the corporate sector, particularly the technology industry in particular. And I represent the White for Women Technology Forum, which is a forum aimed at empowering women within the technology sector. I'd like to give a warm thank you to Mama Susan Maloka for this invitation to this very important discussion. When it comes to unpacking issues related to the uneven distribution of women's work in household, society, and the formal and informal economy alike, which are conversations that have been coming up today, I think the multifaceted nature of the issue, which can present as or be viewed as either a problem or a challenge, actually offers us an opportunity to rethink and strategize in creative ways. Whichever way we look at or account for women's work, particularly in a South African context, we know that women's productivity in the home's economy or at a societal level is geared towards the rearing and education of their children and the general upliftment of the societies in which they belong to. Now, this is not necessarily a noble fact of coincidence on the part of women, but rather a fact of imposed gender roles. And even as this is true, recent events and moments over time, particularly in 2020, have necessitated that we do not look at the people experience as something that's binary because of the fact that our roles are nuanced and complex. But what I'd like to offer here is that we have an opportunity to start thinking creatively about alleviating some of the ways women are burdened. And what has become quite pervasive, particularly within this season, is the triple shift that women have to contend with. And I'm saying the triple shift, but this is probably impact more women, the 10% of women who are actually part of the formal economy, because we know that the majority of women don't belong to the formal economy, but rather to the informal economy. But what I think we should start looking at is looking at how we can leverage technology to harness women's full potential by undermining the barriers to access that exist in them at the moment when it comes to allowing them to participate in the economy. I think it's important to start looking at how do we bridge the digital divide. And this issue of the digital divide, I think, is an urgent issue that demands our full commitment as it pertains to building solutions which account for our unique context across the region. And one such creative strategy would involve thinking through how technology can provide some level of institutional support in the mainstream informal economy. Because if we think about it, what has actually happened, if we remember, I'm sure all of us can remember Mama Tandi Tabete, who was arrested during the lockdown for trying to sell acha in order to feed her children during the lockdown period, which was obviously necessary because we needed to make sure that people stayed safe and that they stayed healthy. But people who were actually able to still operate within the economy were those who had access to digital tools which enabled them to work. Now, with this in mind, my view is that technology should and can play a critical role in closing the digital divide that exists, because a lot of our communities don't have access to digital tools that they would need to help them contribute effectively in the community and allow them an opportunity to actually make money to support not just themselves, but their families as well. So my offer is perhaps looking at how we could, at some point while carving out this charter, looking at how we bring in the whole aspect of technology to make sure that we uplift more women. And I think if more women are given exposure to technological tool sets to allow them to not just be limited to the informal economy, but to be able to tap into the larger and broader economy, this could actually assist. And just my offer is it would be awesome if we linked that in as we develop this charter. Chair, thank you so much for allowing me to give that contribution. Thank you.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Ladies and gentlemen, here is a strong woman. Let us know them. Let us be them. Let us raise them, those strong women. I'm going to call upon Bilondo. Hey, sorry. Hey, I don't want to make a mistake again. Yeah, Bilonda. I've seen your hand.
Good evening, Chair. Can everyone hear me?
Yes, ma'am, we can hear you.
Good evening, Chairperson. I am Ms. Belonda Longi, and I am the co-founder of a youth NPO called Tunajali. And we aim to empower youth, especially women, through education and job empowerment. But I just wanted to ask if there is a budget for NPOs or even a way to help NPOs with fundraising in order for them to help empower women in the education sector and helping women to be able to even enter universities as such, like Neil mentioned in the statistics that women powered households are less likely to have people working. So there are NPOs that are aiming to empower women in such ways, but is there a way where we can marry the municipalities and NPOs to work together with a budget in order to help these NPOs to implement their goals? Thank you.
Are you done, ma'am? Are you done, ma'am?
Yeah. Yes, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Let me call Wendy Impendulo. Mama Wendy, the floor is yours. Mama Wendy.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for this platform. My name is Wendy Impendulo from Impendulo Foundation. We are an NPO that works with vulnerable groups in the city of Tshwane and also in the Eastern Cape. Actually, our focus is all over the country and even outside. My own contribution for this review would be in the sector of art and culture. Currently, our organization is working on the issues of GBV in the victim support, wherein we are using art and culture to let the victims explain the experiences, to have dialogues and talk about the experiences. My own input as a founder and chairperson of Impendulo Foundation is on the issue of equal access of women in the aspects of art and culture. Actually, it's about economic participation and empowerment of women in the art and culture. Because if you all know, if we can all remember, our economy, our society is majority women. Of course, according to the presentation by State SA, it is slightly different. It's a little bit the opposite of what we all always know. But that being the case, women are mostly not highly educated and employed. So this means that in our communities, many people who've got full potential to exploit their artistic nature have no access to art and culture budgets and art and culture activities. So our own input as Impendulo Foundation is that if there is a need to monitor the representation of women in art and their economic participation and inclusion, because this could be used as a tool to prevent the vulnerability of women, and it can also be used as a support form wherein women are in the majority as victims. So my input is that can there be monitoring of representation of women in the arts and culture? For an example, there are good policies like our speaker has mentioned earlier on. There's good policies in our country. However, access to the implementation, access to the policies as well as implementation is not as easy as it has been put out there. So my own is that can there be, in this charter, be monitoring of representation of women in the media and arts and ensuring that there's equal participation and economic inclusion. Yes, thank you. I hope I did elaborate very well on my points. Yeah. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Mom. Thank you very much. I think you were the last person. Let me see. Oh, Ausbi Tumelo. She believed she couldn't, so she did. Ausbi Tumelo. Membi Tumelo.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson. I thank you so much. My name is Sibuitu Melo. I'm a founder of Village of Hope South Africa, where we are dealing with homeless people. We've realized that even in the streets, there are women that end up getting babies died right there in the streets, and the children will crawl there. So our mission is to get a home for those people. And then I was touched, as I'm dealing with homeless people only, I was touched when I found out that there was a lady who got raped. And for me, I used to believe that our court, they always harass you when you are a victim of rape, until I get to acknowledge that it's not like they are harassing them, they just want to find the truth out of them. Then that's when Village of Hope started to come up with a new way of helping those kind of people by preparing them before court. Because in our country, a rate of rape is too high. And as the rate of rape is too high, there's no people that are preparing those people. They don't even know what they're gonna get when they get to court. What they can only find out is that when we get to court, they will only give them the court date. From there, they leave them just like that. And then at the end of the day, those people, when they get there, when the prosecutor starting to question them the way they do, they end up thinking that even the prosecutor is on the side of the person who rapes me. It is like now they are becoming a victims for the second time because they were not prepared. They didn't even know that they will just find that kind of thing there. At the end of the day, we also have the people that can't even report the rape case, since they know that there's nothing that they're gonna do. And that is why the rate of rape went so high in our country. So our organization wants to help on that matter, but we didn't know who to approach on this matter because we see how necessary it is for our community to get equipped to prepare them to go to court. That will also help them that when they get there, they will just be ready to tell what happened to them, and it will be easy. It will even solve the problem easier, and even with the results, it's not going to be that much difficult for them. So we really need help on regarding to that point. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Mama Bitumelo. I just want to check with you. What is your input on that?
What I need is to help those people, the rape victims. We want to prepare them before they go to court. They must know what are expected from them. They must know that when the prosecutor is questioning them, it's not because he wants to embarrass them or what. They must know that it's because they want to find the truth.
Thank you very much, Mama. They call us their rip of their rips, but they abuse us. In this time, but we don't have time now. Mom Lucas, can I get your indulgence? I still have another 3 hands. And when I look at the time, it's almost there. I need your indulgence. Should I take those hands, Mama?
The problem is that people must time themselves, because
yes.
And there is also an opportunity for them to write, to make written submissions.
Yes.
There is also an opportunity for them to make written submissions. So you can possibly give them each 1 minute to just introduce the topic, and then possibly they can make some written submissions to us. So that
okay.
So that we can still have that time that we can also allow for some responses from the presenters. So
thank you very much, Mama.
Possibly we must allow the presenters now. Let's allow the presenters now to respond each 3 minutes each, and then we come back to other issues if there are other issues.
Okay, thank you very much, Mama.
But I also want to respond to 1 or 2 issues, not respond, but make proposals to the people that made inputs. So can you go to the
Can you mute your mic, members? Please. Now I'm going to get all the presenters to respond all the questions that were asked by the participants. Agenda, commission, and if they did ask a question from you, can you say something? And FFC, FFC, and then the municipality, the councillor, and Kosi, that SA. Can you say something if indeed they ask you a question?
If they are still here on the platform.
They are still here. Oh, okay.
Can we allow?
It seems they are not there.
Can we allow me, Nomasonto?
Oh,
yes, sir. I'm still here, Chair.
Okay.
Let me.
Any comment that you want to make on the inputs?
Yes, Lucas, let me close the curtain for light. Thank you very much, Lucas. I think I have agreed that we're going to work together, especially from the 2 municipalities that we presented to this morning, this afternoon, Tshwane and Ekurhuleni. Ekurhuleni, Mayor, Councillor, I must say we have been interacting with the Councillor Unonkosi and Ume Lindiwe from the mayor, the municipality. And I think it is the start that we're going to work together. It's not, we're not taking criticisms, but both parties, we should work together. The Gender Commission is open to come and assist for gender equality. And I think I want to address myself to say, I have interacted with the municipality in Ekurhuleni. We have baby steps, and then I will ask our provincial officials to engage the community. We are on level 1, we can have small communities talking to them, and specifically, let's talk to officials, which is very important. And the second one is, which I want to talk to, is the one of looking at how do we come together and chart the way forward. Specifically that municipalities have the tendency of giving big tenders to men, and women will be giving the small tenders of catering and all those. And there are business people, women on building. Those people must be given the chance to get those tenders. And then secondly, I think it's a good point that we work together and train our people, capacitate them, because it is us as a municipality, we must capacitate. And we've seen that there are people. As a person, I'm a champion of equal pay for equal work. We've spoken about the small businesses. Those women are selling achar, selling fat cakes. It is in the Women's Charter that equal pay for equal work done. And we're going to look at the domestic workers, and let's try and talk to the unions and make full representation, because now everybody is working in silos. Somebody would say, I know, I've heard of the Gender Commission. I don't even know who's there. So Mam Nomasonto is there. The Gender Commission is going to be visible. Mayor Lucas has spoken that in the Free State, they have advanced. I don't think we can be saying today we are defeated. And it's not looking at them as bad people. Let's work together after COVID. And COVID has shown us how powerful we can be as women. We have been looking after our families, and still we worked. Nobody was off work. And I like the idea of the young woman who says, let's capacitate ourselves with the RI4 and the industrial revolution on the issue of data. We have found ourselves that the 4RI, knowing that I did not even care, but today here I stand and have gone through the program. And I think coming together and strengthening our strengths together, I think we could go forward. And I promise you, Mama Kore, we will look at the Women's Charter, and we will come together as communities, as municipalities, and make submissions, because we have just teased it. I always say to people, when there's a webinar, after this, there are those people who can write. Let's come together, put our issues on paper to say this is what we want to see in the charter as we are reviewing it. Because it was in 1956, it was in 1950 that I looked into the charter. Does it still stand and accommodate the young people? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mama. Indeed, a woman is like a tea bag. You will never know how strong it is until you put it in the water, hot water, in fact. Thank you very much. Anyone from SFC?
I see Neil Roo from State SA is there. So Neil,
okay.
Thank you.
That's SAA. I don't want to call you by name today because last time I was told that I'm calling your name in Setswana. SSA.
Yes, thank you very much, ma'am. think just a few things. We've heard somebody talk about well, I think generally speaking, there's been a lot of talk about lack of data, particularly in gender-based violence, and in other forums, they've always also talked about the lack of data on femicide. We've heard today somebody mentioned there's also a lack of data on transgender issues. And I think all of these things are probably true to a large extent. Forums such as these are extremely important in the sense that it provides us a sense of what the data issues are that are, need more work and that are required to focus more on. That said, it's extremely difficult for not only Statistics South Africa, but for many research agencies to adequately measure many of these things, partially because it's extremely difficult to measure some of them, but also partially because there are so many different issues that we need to prioritize many of these. And we need to work with many of our partners in doing this. So, for instance, the gender-based violence is going to be covered by a research study that has just started with the HSRC leading, and Stats South Africa is part of that particular process. And the MRC is looking at femicide part of it. And I think also the other thing I think that is extremely important is that there's also an increased focus on gender mainstreaming in all our surveys. We continuously try to provide data that assist forums like these and generally gender-based forums to improve their data. As our former SG used to say, and I think former Minister Manuel also used to say, if you can't measure it, you can't fix it. And I think that's one of the issues that Stats South Africa is taking up as much as we can going forward. So we're always open for comments in terms of what needs to be measured and how we can improve our offering to members. Thank you very much, ma'am.
Thank you very much, Mr. Nel. Now the time is not on our side.
Allow me,
Ma'am?
Allow me. I just want to also
comment.
say something.
Or before you, Ma'am Lucas.
Yeah, in actual fact, there is one issue that has been bothering me for some time now, and it is the issue that has been raised by Zaza Fisher on the issue of transgender women or LGBTIQA. My concern that I'm having in most of the inputs that we are getting from people from the LGBTQIA community is that they are moving from the back foot. But I think in this review session, what we want is that all people that are identifying with issues around gender and women must make some proposals as to how they see us making input to address the issues that they are bringing up. So I want to make a proposal. Possibly we can collaborate with those that are gender non-conforming, but also those that are seeing themselves as within the LGBTIQA. Possibly we can get together and sit together and really have a summit or something where we trash out what is the issues that would make us feel that this is all inclusive. This is so addressing the issues that they or we think is important to make sure that people that are seeing themselves as not being accommodated are being accommodated within the Women's Charter, within the gender framework, within the framework of gender. I was just thinking to make that proposal because I think somehow, somewhere we need to make sure that we are not offending anyone with the way we are trying to address the issues, and particularly when we want to have a gender inclusive society. So that is the one issue that I wanted to say something about. And also there was an issue of the creative economy, the creative industries. That is arts and culture. I think is Mayor Wendy. We've been quite enlightened by the CEO of South African Cultural Observatory, and we realized that through arts and culture or to the creative industries, to the creative economy, we can have a quite a considerable input into the economy of the country. And like she was saying, it is mostly in the informal economy where you find them. So there is also an opportunity to pursue that further. But sports and arts and culture is one of the issues that, and also the issues on land that I've realized through the review process that we need to do more to address the issues of women around this few of that issues. Also the issue of technology or the digital divide, as was mentioned by Nomonde. Now, I also want to invite Nomonde to the day after tomorrow. We are going to have what we call a youth parliament, but it's not necessarily, it is a feedback session on the issues, particularly with regards to the economy that was raised by young people in our youth parliament. So we invited the economic cluster ministers, and particularly also the economic recovery plan that the president will table in parliament tomorrow. I think it will assist us with regards to issues surrounding the technology as well as the 4IR. And I think that is some of the issues that we need to follow up. I just thought possibly we won't get responses directly with regard to this few issues, and that is why I wanted to comment on it. And I really, we feel strong about the informal economy, and we have been saying as Parliament that we, as part of our sectoral engagement, we will have an economic summit later in this year. And I hope those of the women that are interested in being part of it, we will be able to reach you so that you are part of that specific summit that we are going to have from the side of Parliament. So that is the issues that I wanted to respond on. Thank you very much, Memodise. I won't make the closing remarks immediately now, unless there is one of the other presenters that still want to say something. If not, then I will take the opportunity to make the closing remarks. Now it seems as if there is none. So let me then let me then continue to say the base event is one of two events that will take place within the Gauteng province. Next week we will have the 3 other municipalities or the regions of Gauteng. We will then have a continuation of the session we have started today in Tshwane and Ekurhuleni. But let me just express our appreciation to, in particularly, first of all, our speaker, but also all the councillors and all the members that have actually contributed to the success of the event of today. I think we got very high quality inputs, and we are still going to continue to get inputs because we want more engagement with Parliament, because we want to make sure that Parliament is a Parliament of the people, an activist Parliament where everyone can make the inputs. And also the reason why we are emphasizing on making written submissions is because we want to make sure that we take into account all inputs, and we want to make a report, we want to make a booklet, we want to make a reflection on the participation of the women of South Africa in the review of this Women's Charter. So that is why we want to appreciate inputs by our presenters, that particularly States SA, CGE, FFC, that have been walking this path with us. Very soon we will be finalizing Gauteng, and from there we will be going to Eastern Cape. We have just last week finalized Northwest Province. So in very soon we will be only left with Mpumalanga and KZN that we haven't touched yet. But we have made considerable progress, and we have learned so much from the women. Even today we have actually, through our engagement and also through the report or the feedback from Gauteng through the input of the speaker and the input of the MMC and the manager on women in Ekurhuleni, there is a lot of potential. But something that is also outstanding is the fact that we don't communicate enough. So we must make sure that we communicate our programs, our achievements, so that nothing can reverse what we are going to achieve. I agree. In our legislative review, we tend to forget that there is also legislation that at the municipal level. And today, through the input of FFC, but also through the input of councillors, we have realized that we need to look into the structures and the Municipal Finance Management Act and other legislation at the local level to make sure that our legislative regime inclusively address the issues that will make sure that we will eventually become a gender neutral society. With all of that said and done, I want to also appreciate Honorable Modise that at a very short notice didn't even thought for one moment not to be available to be part and parcel of the women's program. We want to express our appreciation. And once more, please make sure that you use the channels that we are making available for all of us as women to make our inputs and our representations. Thank you very much. God bless. Stay safe. Wash your hands and please keep your distance. I am a survivor of COVID-19. You need a positive mind and you need to make sure that you assist one another in this process. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you very much, Speaker. Thank you.
Thank you,
Sister.
thank you, thank you, colleagues.
Thank you, guys.
Honorable members.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Goodbye.
Bye.